Hi, Ralph.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing well.
Hey, got a question for you.
Okay.
I suppose we should remind people that this is Psychology Takeaway, where we try to apply whatever is new in psychology to one's everyday life. I got a question for everyday life, Ralph.
Okay.
Do you know what AI is?
Hi, matey.
No, no, Ralph, it's not a pirate. Hey, matey. No, it stands for artificial intelligence.
Okay. Yes, I've heard of that.
Okay. What do you know about artificial intelligence?
Well, I know that, for a number of years recently, since we have entered the computer age, people have been working to make what they call artificial intelligence, which is basically a computer system that can, in some respects, mimic the human mind.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I understand. Now, I was listening to Science Friday a while ago, and they were talking about the use of artificial intelligence in, I believe it was looking at x-rays to detect cancer.
Okay.
And apparently, a machine can do this a lot better than a human doctor because a machine can look very, very quickly at a database of hundreds of thousands of scans or x-rays, whereas your doc or mine might have experience with 50 or 60.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And
So
so the
if
idea,
you're looking for a comparison, you want to compare to as many as you can.
yeah,
And if you only have a database of, well, I've seen 50 or 100 x-rays of cancer patients' lungs, uh, even if it's 5,000, that's a different thing than saying I looked at a million of them in 20 seconds.
yeah. So that to me seemed pretty powerful. That's use of the technology. To be able to look at something like this as quickly as a doc could, and somebody in Rwanda can look at the same database as somebody in Beverly Hills.
Okay,
Which,
that makes sense because the computer programs are pretty much universal.
yeah,
So
they talk to each other.
if you can get one in L.A., chances are pretty good you can get one in Africa or India or wherever.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to talk to you about something I heard of this week. But first of all, I'm going to talk to you about chat boxes making original written documents. Okay.
So I know that today we have something that a lot of people are starting to use, which is called Chat GP, and that will write a document. You give it a topic and a length, and it'll write a document for you.
Okay. And the story that I heard, and I was going to put it up on our screen, but I can't find it now, was to have this chat. What do you GP?
Chat GP is
Okay.
one of the titles
Yeah.
of the writing programs.
Okay, so this is a writing program, and somebody, I suppose it was a theologian, asked the chatbot,
Chatbot, yeah.
bot, to write a sermon, I think a 5-point sermon, about, I think it's the book of Revelation,
Okay.
the last book of the Christian Bible.
Which basically, for those of you who are not theologically inclined, talks about the end of times.
Right, right. The return of Christ and the end of time. Okay, end of times. Now, with this creation, the person, I don't know if it was a minister or the person who requested the sermon, read the sermon, a human being read the sermon out loud online, and it was pretty good. The human put some reflection or inflection into the tone of voice, and it sounded good.
Okay.
to me at least. But then I saw another article online, and it was from Germany, and it said something to the effect of, "Can a machine write an interesting sermon?" And so I looked at it, and the people who were critiquing it said that the voice was monotone and there was no body language or inflection. And
Okay, so
maybe
it sounded like Hell from 2001, Space Odyssey,
maybe
very, very mechanical.
that is what the, uh, uh, the reviewer said. Now, whether or not you could program inflections in, I don't know. But the thing that was of interest to me is that here we have a machine that wrote what I thought was a pretty good sermon. It was
Okay.
about a 15-minute sermon, which is a nice length, for a person like me. And it had 5 points. And, so I was thinking about this. Now, you've been a professor for how many years, Ralph? 40, 45?
45, 50,
Yeah.
somewhere in that range.
And you mainly taught English, right?
Right.
English composition?
English composition and writing,
Mm-hmm.
technical writing, business writing, and just introductory first and second course levels.
Okay, and I, as a college prof, supervised lots and lots of theses and dissertations, which require, a tremendous amount of writing. I was wondering, could a machine write a dissertation about self-efficacy of blank individuals? You could throw in any term you want. Self-efficacy of disabled individuals, or self-efficacy of gifted individuals.
Uh-huh.
Do you think
And
that's a possibility?
I think it not only is a possibility, it's becoming increasingly a probability that even at the doctoral level we will get programs that can write at that level of competency.
Okay, so if you have an experimental doctoral thesis, the machine is not going to make up the data for you, but
No.
the machine will do the review of the literature
Right?
and
And
maybe formulate the hypotheses.
could formulate the hypotheses. It could, for example, tease out. Now, you might have to go to a statistical program as part of that, but it could tease out from your data anything that's statistically significant and comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that so far at least AI does not seem real good at is introducing human emotions into the piece of writing that it's doing. So if you're writing something which is going to reflect a number of feelings of your characters, for example, the chat GP and other things don't seem to be quite there yet.
Oh, okay.
But if you're writing technical material, they seem to do a better job of that where there's no emotions involved.
Okay. It was a dark and stormy night. With a crack of thunder and lightning, Ralph's blood turned to ice.
Yes,
Yeah.
something like that.
Something like that. Okay. Hackneyed is all get out, right? But
Right.
I can do it and the machine can't, you're saying?
Right.
Yet. Not yet.
The machine can't do it as well. And while it can write very descriptively, so the dark and stormy night might become a paragraph on its own, it can't do what you felt
Mm-hmm.
as well as a human can.
Okay. Yeah, I can remember, well, back in the, I guess, early 70s, there were a number of computer programs that came out that essentially were therapy programs. And the usual, back in the day, the reflection back of content was, the Rogerian approach. And I could say, gee, Ralph, I feel down today. And the machine would come back with, oh, you feel down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I don't feel down. I feel depressed. Oh, you feel depressed? And, that kind of reflection.
Fairly simplistic reflection.
Yeah.
Instead of saying something like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me more about that."
Okay.
Yeah.
And we could probably program a machine to say, "Tell me more," without any difficulty. But again, we're not going to get at the emotion of the individual. Now, you mentioned Hal from 2000.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay, yeah. Did he demonstrate any emotions?
No, he was the computer in this was ruthlessly logical, and that was part of the problem that the human being was having. Is he was caught in a logical cleft stick where there was no good option, and Hal was basically telling him to do first one thing and then another,
which he couldn't do.
Okay. So, and back in the 70s, Jim, there was another one that was very prominent at the time. It was an attempt to get a translation between, and people who lived through it will remember the Cold War, where the Russians and the West were at loggerheads, and we wanted to get something that could do good translations as we were talking to the, quote, other side.
Okay.
And so they developed a computer program that would translate from English to Russian and Russian to English. So they gave it a test case, and the test case was to translate from English to Russian the phrase, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak."
Okay, I can see that this could be fraught with difficulty. What was the translation?
The translation was, "The vodka is good, but the meat has gone bad."
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So they didn't at that point say, "We're going to accept this translation," but no.
I know when I was teaching psychology of advertising that there was one section where the slogans that were good slogans here in America didn't translate worth a darn when it came to other cultures. I'm trying to remember one of them. Here it might be that the impala goes like a deer or something like that, and in Latina country it was the deer is dead.
Yeah,
something to that effect.
Something to that effect. Now, one of the classic examples is just in car names. There used to be a Chevrolet brand that was called Vega. Well, oh yeah, Vega. That sounds like a nice name. It does if you're in North America, but if you're in South America, you put those two words together, Vega, it means don't go.
Don't go, okay. That, I think, was probably what I was trying to think of. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to Hal and, the robot who has, or the chatbot who doesn't quite get the emotions. How does that relate to Mr. Spock? Remember Mr. Spock?
Mr. Spock
Star Trek?
is the absolutely logical person, rationality, reason, and every time there was a scenario where some sort of emotion came in, Spock would say, very interesting. Like, I don't understand this, but it's very interesting. Why would you make that statement or decision?
Okay. Now, I could be remembering this incorrectly, but wasn't there an episode where Spock fell in love?
Yes, I believe it.
Yeah. So love certainly is full of human emotions. How would Mr. Spock have handled that?
Well, if I'm remembering the episode correctly, very badly.
Yeah.
Because the rationality that he was feeling, there is no reason for me to care for this person, no rational reason, didn't work with I am feeling differently about this person than I have about anybody else.
Yeah. Now, it's kind of interesting, Ralph. I said that I vaguely recalled, and you said I might have recalled. Now, could be that that episode didn't exist at all, right?
It could be. We could be remembering, that could be a false memory, or we could be generating something from 5 or 6 different episodes where we are piecing together pieces of those episodes to make something in our own mind.
Yeah. So are we manifesting artificial intelligence? Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But, here's a what I think is a very interesting Spockian sort of thing.
Spockian?
Spockian.
Okay. I think you've just invented a new word.
Could be. But, we look at advertising, as you mentioned earlier on, and we're at a point now where with artificial intelligence, we could have a television ad, let's say a 30-second ad, where we have somebody, apparently a well-known politician, appears on our television screens and says something that is just absolutely, according to everything that they have said previously, totally wrong, totally against everything that they have said they stand for.
Okay, so we have a politician who says, I want you to trust me and drink Budweiser beer.
Okay.
Okay, I mean...
Bud Light, in view of the latest controversy. But, the thing is that you have that, you have Ron DeSantis, to give you an example, saying, I have recently come to believe that the Democrats are more correct on the economy than I give them credit for.
Okay.
So that doesn't fit with anything that Ron DeSantis has said.
Okay.
But the avatar, the artificial creation of his image, along with what the AI has generated in terms of a statement, seems 100% real.
Okay. This is what they call the dark side of AI, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So, I might have this incorrect, but the machine can create from bits and pieces of data an image of the spokesperson that looks very, very real, and generate some verbalizations that look or sound very, very real.
And do that in the voice of the person. Mm-hmm. So we've all heard people who are wonderful mimics who can come out and do John Wayne,
Right.
So they come on stage and they take the correct posture and they say, you better believe it, Pilgrim, or you're dead where you stand. And, hey, John Wayne, yeah, I recognize that voice, in spite of my very bad impression. But a good mimic can do that to the point where you're willing to say, yeah, that sounded, kind of looked like and kind of acted like the real John Wayne.
Uh-huh.
Well, the AI can do that now to the point where it's almost indistinguishable from the real person, and it's talking in what appears to be their voice because the AI has taken bits and pieces of their voice from various clips and melded them together so that they are in the same intonation.
Interesting. So that, to go back to my original example of the sermon, if we trained the AI to listen to, say, my pastor, who's very dynamic and very, forceful and shouts and whispers, we could get that monotone, this is what I am saying, into what sounds like real life stuff.
We could.
Okay.
And that is current technology. So now the thing is, we say, okay, what happens in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it's a good point, because technology today looks a lot different than it did 10 years ago.
It does. And so the thing is, you say, okay, now we have this capability which we can utilize to make something that is virtually real, and that's only going to get better and better and look more and more real over the course of the next 10 years. So 10 years from now, how are we going to be able to distinguish AI from reality?
Good question, Ralph. And I think you sent me a link called The Dark Side of AI.
I did, yes.
Okay, so we're not in the usual habit of playing the arbiter of doom and gloom, but this does really represent a potential thorny problem at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, and one of the things that our listeners may be interested in terms of a future podcast, we're going to talk about ethics a bit in the next month or so. And one of the things that we can now say pretty substantively is that one of the problems with AI is there is no built-in ethical base.
Okay, good point. Yeah. We won't go there right now, but I think that's going to be an interesting series.
Yeah.
Well, we've looked at this new thing, for us new, this thing called artificial intelligence, and sometimes I wonder if there's any intelligence, artificial or not, on our planet.
It's an arguable case against.
So until next time, this is Jim.
And Ralph.
Saying, keep your stick on the ice.
Because we're all in this
Together.